Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Vaishnava Paramahansa Bhavaraja Jaya Alpha with AC Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Namaskar Thakur Ki Jai Friends of the host Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopika Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Avadhutam Ki Jai Ganga Jamuna Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Go Premanandi all glories to some of the devotees, all glories to some of the devotees, all glories to some of the devotees, all glories to Sri Guru Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswata Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tadane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Sri Caitanya Caritamrita Adhyaya Chapter 7, this is verse 46. What is it? 46. Tapamisra Ghari Bhiksha Nirvahan Sanyasira Sange Nahi Mani Nirmantrana I think so. That's what I thought we did. Okay. Anyway. Okay. Okay. What about 45? No, 47. Okay. Anyway. Sanatan Gosai Asi Tanhai Milita Kamra Shiksha Lagi Prabhu Dumas Rahila. Translation: When Sanatana Goswami came from Bengal, he met Lord Chaitanya at the house of Tapanisra, where Lord Chaitanya remained continuously for 2 months to teach him devotional service. Purport: Lord Chaitanya taught Sanatana Goswami in the line of disciplic succession. Sanatana Goswami was a very learned scholar in Sanskrit and other languages, but until instructed by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he did not write anything about Vaishnava behavior. His very famous book, Hari Bhakti Vilas, which gives directions for Vaishnava candidates, was written completely in compliance with the instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In this Hari Bhakti Vilas, Sri Sanatana Goswami gives definite instructions that by proper initiation by a bona fide spiritual master, one can immediately become a Brahmana. In this connection, he says, Yata kanchanatam yati kamsyam rasa vidanataha tata diksha vidanena dvijatam jayate nranam. As metal is turned to gold when mixed with mercury in an alchemical process, so one who is properly trained and initiated by a bona fide spiritual master immediately becomes a Brahmana. Sometimes those born in Brahmana families protest this, but they have no strong arguments against this principle. By the grace of Krishna and his devotees, one life can change. This is confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam by the words Jahati Bandham and Sudanti. Jahati Bandham indicates that a living entity is conditioned by a particular type of body. The body is certainly an impediment, but one who associates with a pure devotee and follows his instructions can avoid this impediment and become a regular Brahmana by initiation under his strict guidance. Srila Jiva Goswami states how a non-Brahmana can be turned into a Brahmana by the association of a pure devotee. Prabhu Vishnave Namaha. Lord Vishnu is so powerful that he can do anything he likes. Therefore, it is not difficult for Vishnu to change the body of a devotee who is under the guidance of a pure devotee of the Lord. Translation: When Sanatana Goswami came from Bengal, he met Lord Chaitanya at the house of Tapanisra, where Lord Chaitanya remained continuously for 2 months to teach him devotional service. So here we have Lord Chaitanya meeting Sanatana Goswami in Varanasi, and for 2 months Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught him. After that, Sanatana Goswami wrote his works. One is this Hari Bhakti Vilas, which is quite a large work, containing a lot of quotations from Smritis and Puranas and some Pancharatra as well. It's mainly about deity worship, but it also contains sections on the rules of Vaishnava behavior. So we consider this work to be an authoritative work on Vaishnava Achar, or the behavior of a Vaishnava, because of that. At the same time, if we look in other places, we'll find that Prabhupada says, if you just read the text of this book, it is sometimes misleading, because it has so many rules that we don't always follow. So why are so many rules? That is because it is quoting from many Smritis. And the Smriti Shastras are, let's say, those things like Manu Smriti and other Smritis. One who really follows those is called a Smarta. And sometimes we speak of the Smarta in a very derogatory way, that he's too attached to the rules. He's not necessarily that, but it often turns out like that because he follows all those rules. A lot of the rules of the Varnashram system are contained in the Smritis, as well as how one should conduct oneself within the different Varnas and Ashramas. So has a lot of rules in it. Many of those rules are quoted in Hari Bhakti Vilas, plus a lot of rules from Puranas concerning deity worship. So we regard this as an authority for Vaishnava Achar and for deity worship. At the same time, we have to be a little careful on how we read that. So therefore, Prabhupada says you also have to read the commentary, because then in the commentary, sometimes Sanatana Goswami says, well, this one we don't do as Vaishnavas because it's contrary to our procedures. So he also says that. So we have to see the whole context of these statements of Sanatana Goswami. So in any case, the work is a vast work, and we have to read it very carefully to understand its proper intention. So in that work, then we have this quotation that is in the purport, as by alchemy one can change bell metal into gold, so at the same time a person becomes dvija by the process of diksha. Bell metal, of course, or any metal, cannot change into gold by normal means. Of course, in the Western world there was a whole movement of trying to do that, and that's where alchemy came from. They're trying to mix chemicals together to produce gold out of gross elements. So similarly in India there was some sort of method by which they were doing this. So by a chemical process, rasa vidanataha, then bell metal or kamsya got changed into gold. So a gross metal turns into a precious metal by some means, which is not normally possible. So that analogy is used to show that an ordinary human being, by the process of diksha, becomes a dvija, or a second-born person. Of course, so there's three types of second-born persons. One is the Vaishya, the other is the Kshatriya, and the third is the Brahmana. So what does dvija mean? It means literally being born twice. So you're born from the womb of a mother, that's your physical birth, and then you're born again, spiritually speaking, when you get the Brahma Gayatri mantra from your father, and then you can begin studying the Vedas. So that's called your second birth. That is normally done for the upper varnas, Vaishya, Kshatriya, and Brahmana, and particularly by the Brahmanas. And if they don't go through that Vedic Diksha and get the Vedic mantra, then they're not qualified to study the Vedas. So that Gayatri mantra is considered to be the summary of the whole Vedas, a concentration of all the Vedas. So you get that mantra, then you're qualified to start studying. So the mantra is usually given when a person is 5 years old, and along with that there's a complicated samskar, a Vedic ritual, which includes fire sacrifice, by which that is done. So it's a standard ceremony done. Now, that is usually done according to birth. And that's been the custom for, I don't know how long, but a long, long time. So born in a Brahmin family, then the Brahmin boys, when they're 5 years old, they get the samskar, and called Upanayinam samskar. They get a mantra, they get a thread, and then they are qualified to study the Vedas. And we see, for instance, when Lord Chaitanya was a child, then he got his Upanayinam, he got his mantra, he got his thread, then he was allowed to study the Vedas. So it was a process that was done commonly by the upper caste, and particularly the Brahmanas. And of course, they're supposed to study the Vedas, but as time went on, even that didn't take place, and they just got their thread or whatever and their mantra at a certain time, which made them into Brahmanas, so to speak, or solidified their caste. And nowadays, sometimes they don't, in the Brahmin communities, they don't get it when they're 5 years old at all, but they get it later. So when they get married, which is another samskar, the Vivaha samskar, with another Vedic ceremony, just before that, they have to get their ceremony. So they get their thread just before that, because they shouldn't get their marriage unless they got their thread. They're not in Dvija. First they become Dvija, and then they're allowed to get married. So they just do it the day before, abbreviation of the ceremony. So it's kind of symbolic, so to speak. Huh? But originally it was there too. Qualified person to study the Vedas. Huh? So that's one type of Diksha. Now we have another type of Diksha. It says Vaishnava Diksha. And it's similar in that one gets mantras, just as in the Vedic Diksha one gets the Brahma Gayatri mantra given by the father to the son. So the guru gives the Vaishnava mantra to the disciple, and then he's allowed to worship the deity. So that's the Vaishnava Diksha. So what's the difference? The difference is that doesn't matter about your caste, your varna. In the Vedic system, Vaishyas, Kshatriyas, and Brahmanas were allowed to get the Vedic Diksha. The Vaishnava Diksha or Pancharatrik Diksha is open for anyone. It doesn't matter about caste, and you can get any time. You don't have to be 5 years old or whatever, any age. It could be any varna, or even outside the varna system, you could get this Pancharatrik Vaishnava initiation, get the mantra, and you're qualified for worshipping the deity. So, as far as Vaishnavas are concerned, this was the main element to get a bona fide guru, get initiation, and then begin worshipping the deity. Okay? So this way you cultivated Vaishnav actions, etc. This was before introduction of Harinam by Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay? So this is a standard system, and all the Vaishnavas follow this particular system. And the mantras are secret. They're not publicly chanted by anyone. It's a personal mantra for meditation and for worshipping the deity. So by that process, of course, getting mantra and chanting the name of the Lord, then automatically one becomes free from all karmas. And then one is qualified to worship the deity, and technically then one surpasses the gunas of the people in the varnashram system. So we're actually even superior to the brahmana. It's not we're trying to be a brahmana, but we're actually superior to the brahmana. So becoming a Vaishnava makes you superior to the brahmana, therefore you can do anything a brahmana can do. However, within traditional society in India, not many people dared to do that. So even if they were qualified as a Vaishnava, still they maintained the social rules, and they kept those people who were low caste and were Vaishnavas separate from the system. They were not considered to be the same as a Brahmana, and they couldn't do the Brahmana activities, etc. So that became a controversy within the Gaudiya Sampradaya, because the emphasis began to be changed. One is that the process of Diksha, etc., was still continued, but then chanting of the name of the Lord became more prominent. That's the Yuga Dharma. So this was the emphasis within Lord Chaitanya's movement, chant the holy name. Chanting the holy name does not need Diksha. It is not secret. Everybody can do it. Of course, if you're qualified as a Vaishnava, then you can get the Vaishnava mantras, and there's no restriction there also. But nevertheless, you have to go through the guru and get the mantra, and he has to judge that you're qualified. Harinam, name of the Lord, just chanting it, is much more free than that. There's no regard for varna, ashram, or anything, and even qualification, as we see in the case of Ajamil, he chanted the name of the sun as being that, and he had some effect from the mantra. So it is quite free, the chanting of the holy name. It's beyond all these, even the Pancharatrik Diksha. So Vedic Diksha is strictest, and then Vaishnava initiation is more liberal, and then Harinam is even more liberal. It doesn't even need initiation of any sort at all. And you can just chant the name of the Lord. And so that's why it says in Caitanya Caritamrita that Harinam, the name of the Lord, does not depend on initiation. You can do it anytime without getting initiation. So this became prominent in Lord Chaitanya's movement, chanting Hare Krishna. Along with that, of course, the system of Diksha went on. Like Lord Chaitanya got initiation, he got Krishna mantra, and he went back from Gaya to Navadvip when he became Vaishnava, and then he started Kirtan movement, etc. Lord Chaitanya, he also followed the system of going through the tradition of Diksha also, Vaishnava Diksha. He also got, when he was a child, the Vedic Diksha, so he had both. So the two systems remained there, Vaishnava Diksha, or three systems. Vaishnava Diksha, anytime, and then you worship the deity. The Vedic Diksha was carried on according to your birth. If you were a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, okay, you get your thread and you're allowed to study the Vedas. Usually when you're 5 years, 7 years old, that was done. Separate ceremony, completely separate. So the Vedic Diksha done by the father, the Vaishnava Diksha by a Vaishnava, bona fide Vaishnava guru. So those things were there. Plus, everyone was chanting Hare Krishna in Lord Chaitanya's movement. So the Harinam became more prominent. And everyone was allowed to join in that movement, and less emphasis was given to the Vedic chanting of those mantras, and even to the other mantras in one sense, because deity worship is less prominent than Harinam, so we're concentrating on Hare Krishna. So therefore, generally we have vows for chanting Hare Krishna. You got to chant so many rounds of Hare Krishna every day. But we don't have that for your deity mantras, your Diksha mantras. The only time we use them, maybe 3 times a day, you chant 10 times or whatever, and you go to the deity room, you use them then. But the amount of time you chant those mantras is very little compared to the devotion that we have to chanting Hare Krishna. So that becomes main sadhana in that way. And even if you're don't have Vaishnava Diksha, you can chant Hare Krishna. You can chant 16 rounds or 42 rounds or 64 rounds or whatever you want to, and you can progress that way also. The system went on like that. We have these 3 separate things going on within our sampradaya. But when Bhaktivinoda Thakur was present, and when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was present, then some of the very strict caste-conscious people, who we call the Smartas, they began to criticize the Gaudiyas. They said, if you're not a Brahmana by birth, and you haven't got your mantra as a child and your thread, etc., you shouldn't worship the deities. You shouldn't worship Shalagram Shila. But of course, by Pancharatric principles, if you got the Pancharatric mantras at Vaishnava Diksha, then you're qualified. It doesn't really matter. But nevertheless, they were insisting that Gaudiya Vaishnava is not very high class and whatever, so they shouldn't worship the deities. Only the Brahmanas, they should worship the deities. So this became a little bit of an argument. And they actually held a huge gathering of Vaishnavas. So they called some authoritative Vaishnavas from Vrindavan, some authoritative Vaishnavas, Gaudiya Vaishnavas from Bengal, and they called all these Smartas who were criticizing and saying you have to be a Brahmana to worship the deity. And they had a discussion of this, you could say a debate more or less, and they gave all their ideas. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati also came to that meeting, and then he presented his arguments, which were later compiled in a book called Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, in which he gives all the different evidences for what is a Brahmana, what is a Vaishnava, and quoting from different scriptures. So his conclusion there was that ultimately, yes, very good for the Brahmana, but if you're a Brahmana, you should also follow the Brahminical qualities, and otherwise you're not very qualified. You shouldn't be claiming you're a Brahmana if you're not actually Brahminical in nature. But nevertheless, it's a high standard. But by quoting the other scriptures, then the conclusion was that actually the Vaishnava is even superior to the Brahmana. And it doesn't matter, the Varna, or whether he's a Brahmana or a Sudra or whatever, doesn't really matter. If he's a Vaishnava, then he's actually on a superior level. So apparently his arguments were persuasive, and people accepted that. After that, then when he started his movement, the Gaudiya Mat, and he gathered disciples, etc. Then he introduced, or he changed the system a little bit. So, when one got initiated as a Vaishnava, then definitely one has attained a very high status. And in the Bhagavatam it says that anyone who is a Vaishnava and he chants the holy name once or meditates on the lotus feet of the Lord purely, then all of his karmas are gone. The karmas of this lifetime are gone. So if you're a dog eater by karma of this lifetime, and you become a devotee, and you chant the holy name of the Lord purely, or you meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord purely, then you don't have any karmas. And you're qualified to do whatever a Brahmana can do. Because you don't have any bad karmas left. So taking that verse, then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati says, I'm initiating these devotees as Vaishnavas, giving them the Vaishnava mantras, etc. So therefore, they're qualified to do whatever a Brahmana can do. They can do the sacrifices or puja or whatever they can do. So he took the step of giving them the Brahma Gayatri mantra. They may have got it if they were Vaishya Kshatriya Sudras, but if they were Vaishya Kshatriya Brahmanas, if they were Sudras, then they wouldn't have had it. But then he gave them to everyone. He gave the Brahma Gayatri mantra and the thread to everyone. And he carried out that ceremony, the Upanayana ceremony, and made them all into brahmacharis, even if they were old men or villagers or whatever. They set the fire sacrifice and they go through the mantra and they all become brahmacharis, and they get a staff, because a brahmachari has a stick and a little deer skin or whatever, and they become brahmacharis for one day or whatever, a few seconds. So in this way, he literally enacted this statement here, that as the bell mellows turn into gold by the process of diksha, so or by alchemy, so one becomes dvija, or twice born, by the process of diksha. So by process of diksha, and then he also carried out the Brahma Gayatri ceremony, Upanayana, and everyone became Brahminical as well, because they had surpassed all the gunas and they were superior to everybody. So they were qualified to do whatever a Brahmana could do. So in this way he showed concretely and graphically that the Brahmana is superior to the Vaishnava. And he's destroyed all of his karmas, so he has a right to do whatever a Brahmana can do, to counteract the arguments of the Smartas, who were saying that those who are not Brahmanas should not worship the deity, etc. So we carry on in that mood. So that's why we also get the Brahmana thread and whatever like this, and have the Brahmana mantra, the Brahma Gayatri mantra, etc. So, nevertheless, the two things are a little bit separate. The Brahma Gayatri qualifies to study the Vedas, and traditionally it's not particularly Vaishnavic, though because they use it as a punya more than anything else. But ultimately, in the beginning, its origin actually it is Vaishnavic, because it indicates Vishnu. It is meditation and praise of Vishnu. So therefore, ultimately a Vishnu mantra. So it's not contrary to our sadhana also, because it's also meditation on Vishnu. But it's a Vedic way of doing it. And of course, we generally prefer mantras which have the name of Krishna in it, or that refer to Krishna rather than Vishnu, and these are more significant for us as our sadhana. Therefore we've got these different dikshas. That we get a Vedic Diksha, and we got a Vaishnava Diksha. And apart from that, we're still chanting Hare Krishna without beyond Diksha. So we got three things therefore, with three processes. The Vedic Diksha, which is more or less a formality to show we're better than Brahmanas. We got the the Vaishnava Diksha to show that we're actual Vaishnavas and we're entitled to worship the deity according to Pancharatric standards. And we have Harinam, which leads us to Krishna Prema, and it's beyond all rules and regulations and beyond Diksha also. So we have all these processes going on, of which ultimately chanting the holy name is the supreme process. Though the chanting of Hare Krishna does not need Diksha, does not depend on Diksha, as I mentioned in the talking about Harinam Chintamani, in order to get prema, we have to chant purely. In order to chant purely the name of the Lord, we need knowledge. In order to get knowledge, we have to go to devotees. So we do need some sort of guru also for chanting the Hare Krishna in order to get the proper knowledge. But that is, you can say Shiksha Guru, someone who gives proper teachings, knowledge of Sampannā Jnana, etc. So that's the necessity for Harinam. So this, of course, becomes a little more complicated because even Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he refers to getting Diksha of the holy name in the sense that the Guru will tell you to chant Hare Krishna and he gives you some nice instructions, avoid the aparads, etc. So he also labels that a type of initiation, even though technically it's not initiation in the sense of Pancharatric initiation. So that's where we end up with two initiations. We have the first initiation and the second initiation. And sometimes Prabhupada says the first initiation is more important. More important because we're getting instructions so we can chant Hare Krishna properly, which is our main sadhana. But in another letter he says, actually second initiation is the real initiation. So it is in the sense that that's the Pancharatric initiation. When we call initiation, it's defined as getting a mantra from the Guru by which you worship the deity. So that's the second initiation, technical initiation. So in that way our system has evolved to the present day. Okay, any question there?
Do you think that there's an overemphasis on Diksha in the modern ISKCON?
Probably that Diksha is of some sort is kind of emphasized everywhere, not just in Vaishnava rituals, not just in ISKCON or in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, but even, let's say, Tantrics or other Shivites or anyone, or they also have some sort of emphasis on these things. Because you're getting some secret mantras or which have Shakti in them, and then you advance. So in that sense there is. Now within the our Gaudiya Sampradaya, we know that that is not so prominent as chanting Hare Krishna because that's the Yuga Dharma for everybody. So therefore it looks a little bit strange if we start emphasizing that again, overemphasizing the Diksha over chanting Hare Krishna and the Siksha. So logically it looks a little strange, but we see that's what happened after. Or Chaitanya, if you look at his instructions everywhere, he just tells everybody to chant the holy name, chant the holy name, chant the holy name. He doesn't really say you have to take Diksha and whatever like that. Now of course we do have in Caitanya Caritamrita, yes, Diksha is there, and if you don't take Diksha then your life is wasted and this and that, which is quoting from scriptures which are glorifying Diksha before Harinam came into existence, when it was not manifested as the Yuga Dharma. So the Vaishnavas had to get Diksha to get a mantra so they could worship the deity. But now that we get Harinam, the system has changed somewhat. Lord Chaitanya, of course, did Diksha, and of course the different followers, they initiated people also. So we have Advaitacharya and Gadadhar Pandit and Srinivasacharya and so many persons. They gave initiation, so it's not that it was They were disobeying Lord Chaitanya, so a system is there. But as we see, it tends to get overemphasized because its real function was to give the mantras. Of course, those same Diksha gurus could also give Shiksha, so in that sense. But then the whole thing becomes a little confusing, and we're taking Diksha for the wrong reason, maybe. So therefore, yes, in one sense, overemphasized. Now, the idea of guru being overemphasized, no, because definitely need guru, and we need a parampara system of teachings, but not necessarily the Diksha guru, could be Shiksha guru. And we see that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he didn't even trace a parampara through Diksha guru. He traced it all through Shiksha, to show that it wasn't so important, that Diksha, but the Shiksha was more important, so he traces our parampara through a Shiksha line instead of a Diksha line. Nevertheless, we'll see even in Gaudiya Math nowadays, they emphasize the Diksha again. And in ISKCON also we emphasize the Diksha again. So we got a little bit of a dual type of mentality here. One side we're saying one thing, but we're doing a different thing. So yeah, in one sense we say overemphasis. Maybe there should be a balance. We'll see some very definite statements in the Caitanya Caritamrita that the Diksha Guru and the Shiksha Guru should be equally respected. So it's not you should respect the Diksha Guru more. So you should also respect the Shiksha Guru. That's one observation there. It also has a particular danger for ISKCON if we overemphasize Diksha Gurus, because it's unlike, our movement is unlike most movements, because we have many Diksha Gurus. Most movements don't. We only have one Diksha Guru. So, and he's also probably the main Shiksha Guru, so everything is concentrated in one person. But we don't have that system. We have many Diksha Gurus. And if we emphasize the Diksha Guru a lot, then that unbalances everything, because we get groups of people all over the place following their Diksha Guru, and we don't have a unity within ISKCON itself. So that tends to break up the managerial structure of ISKCON, where we have GBCs and regional secretaries and temple presidents, etc. We have a Diksha Guru going off on his own, disciples following him, and then the Diksha Guru makes his own policies about establishing temples or doing whatever he wants. It's a completely separate management system from the rest of ISKCON. And he may take all of us devotees out of temples and start a new group someplace. So, you know, then that way it becomes, it defeats the managerial structure that Prabhupada put in place. And that's another problem with the Diksha Guru, if it's overemphasized, because you have so many, and they can all get individual power centers and take their disciples and do things with them that are not within the managerial structure. So that creates a problem also.
Other than Brahmanas, if they are Vaishnavas, can worship the deities.
Well, even Pancharatra gets a rule. Pancharatra itself, not just them, even before then, it was recognized that they could. But other sampradayas also may criticize that, because they were quite caste conscious even. other Vaishnava groups may be more caste conscious than us, but Gaudiyas are a little more liberal in that sense. But Pancharatra itself is also liberal compared to Vedic things.
In your experience, having seen the Brahmanas worship the deities in India, and having seen the non-Brahmanas, but Vaishnavas, worshipping the deities in the last 40 years in this town, do you think one is better than the other?
It's different, because most of the Brahmin groups that are doing it, where Vaishnavas are, they're doing it with extreme Vaidhi Bhakti, with a lot of rules and regulations, like Sri Sampradaya, Madhva Sampradaya. Definitely the worship is very good in one sense, but it's very strict and very according to rule and regulation. Whereas in the Gaudiya Sampradaya it's a little more Raganuga-ish in general. Even if we say we're doing Vaidhi Bhakti, it's quite Raganuga in comparison to that strict Vaidhi Bhakti type of deity worship. So we can't really compare them in that way. They're quite different. But definitely in those other sampradayas, it's the Brahmanas who do the worship and whatever like that. In the temples especially.
So as I understand, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati is the one who introduced the 4 regulative principles at the time of initiation. Is
Probably, I'm not quite sure, but we'll see like a nectar devotion. There's no mention of regulative principles or anything. I was wondering about that, and there's no commentary about that at all. But I would assume that they were, Rupa Goswami was assuming you were at a civilized standard of life already, so they didn't bother with these low type of regulations. The nearest we come to that is those in the 20 regulations in the beginning that are door to bhakti is don't be overcome by, lamentation, etc., extremes of emotion and things like this, and don't have too much attachments. That's they don't get any more than that and say, no illicit sex life and intoxications. They don't even mention things like that. So maybe because it wasn't considered it was a little ungraceful to mention that in a sacred work or something. mentioned that these four regulative principles was the condensed version of the Manu Samhita to bring us the human form of life. Yes. Well, of course, we have in the first canto also we have the legs of Dharma and the things that. So it's basically those regulative principles which are there as part of supporting Dharma. So if we don't have any Dharma, then it's very difficult to practice bhakti because we're doing sinful activities. So. Yeah.
Also, when you take sannyas, you get given the
extra mantra.
There's a Brahma mantra.
That's one of them, but there's also a separate sannyasa mantra as well.
That's Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's introduction again?
Well, the sannyasa mantra, no, that comes traditionally. It's the one that's also given to Babaji's. There's another mantra. Or maybe he gave the Avanti Brahmana mantra, but that's from the Bhagavatam. But the actual sannyasa mantra is another mantra.
It's not so prevalent way. There is the checks and balances way someone who has taken Diksha, Brahman Diksha, the initiation to worship the deity, that they are following the 4 regulated principles and chanting the 16 rounds daily. But sometimes the ones who are not within ISKCON sometimes maybe visiting Vrindavan and maybe some temples where it can be a bit disturbing with the way you observe these birds everywhere. It's not clean and even on the deities. So
the temples, you mean?
Yeah. So does it mean that the deities have left and it's just an idol?
Have the deities left, or has Krishna left the deity form? Well, it is said that, in Pancharatrically speaking, there are many conditions under which a deity would leave. Like if the service isn't regular, even they may leave, or if they get touched by an untouchable person, unclean person, the deity may leave. So there's quite strict things concerning that. So it's possible, but. Again, the other idea is the devotion. If there's some devotion there, fine, but then if we can say the standards are very bad, then maybe we say there's no devotion there. But I don't know if we can judge or not, those standards of those persons. But there is, there's possibility of deities, the Lord leaving deities under different conditions of neglect.
Regarding, you were explaining how Bhaktisiddhanta defended the fact that a Brahman is by quality and not by birth.
Yeah.
And also Lord Chaitanya, in a way, he defended that. And also, for example, when I read the Bhagavad Gita, I see a lot of support. When Krishna explains a Brahmana, he gives a list of qualities, so he's never saying it's by birth, but it's by quality.
Yeah.
So everything is, how to say, supports, every argument supports each other. But coming to women, for example, how Prabhupada, he gave initiation to women and everything, and then you read in the scriptures, things like we are in the same line as the most sinful, even the most sinful as women, dog eaters, shooterers. So I was just wondering, because from my observation of the world, even statistics say that the worst crime in the whole planet made by are done by men.
Uh-huh.
So how is that compatible with the scriptures saying that we are the worst sinners, like dog eaters, and we always in the same line, like with animals or dog eaters, is it because Kali Yuga everything is like upside down, or in the past it was like that, or what is, I don't understand.
Well, I don't think it was particularly addressing Kali Yuga. And I don't know if they're classifying women as in the same class as dog eaters or whatever, but we find, for instance, in Bhagavad Gita it says women, Vaishyas, Sudras, etc., like that, are all capable of taking to the process of bhakti. So I suppose we can conclude from that that other systems like karma yoga and jnana and yoga exclude everybody, definitely. But the process of bhakti doesn't. It admits everybody. So if to do jnana, you cannot be a Sudra, even a Vaishya or a Kshatriya. What to speak of a Sudra or a woman or anybody else. Only the Brahmana can do that. So that was the general principle. At the same time, we see though Vedic life seemed to be very strict, we also get exceptional cases. So in the Upanishads itself, there's mentions there was Gargi, is a famous woman, and she must have studied the Vedas. She was giving Vedic knowledge and talking about Brahman and everything, so she was better than the Gyanis, and she was a woman. So there were exceptional cases where women also succeeded at doing what only the men should do, because generally the women don't study the Vedas, and whatever, but then she must have studied the Vedas somehow. Some guru gave her the mantra, and then she studied the Vedas, etc. And she's talking about Brahman with all the sages. So, although it looks a little strict, there was also flexibility within that system. Just like the birth thing, it seems a little strict, only by birth. But originally, it was a little more flexible, so that a person's born as Kshatriyas had Brahman qualities, then they became sages. So there was, though they delineated people because of different qualities, and it was flexible within that. If different persons had exceptional qualities, then they would do something else. And the birth type of, let's say, qualities, so they were general. There was, they made exceptions, and people could go beyond that and do something else.
But I'm not really talking about exceptions. Like I'm not sure if that verse is from Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita. It says literally, even the most sinful, like women, dog eaters, in the same line. And I was going back to the the most sinners in the world.
Well, I think there's a controversy about that, because it can be taken as the most sinful, plus the Vaishyas, plus the Sudras, plus the women can take to the thing. So it's not saying that the women are included in the most sinful. It's another category. So some of the acharyas take it like that means that. There's the people who are beyond the varnashram system, then there's the people within the varnashram system, and the women, etc. So it's not putting them all in the, the condemned classes or whatever. In fact, there's a whole argument among different devotees because where you put the comma makes the interpretation a little different. So, and then they were trying to look at which word we're going to follow, where we're going to put the comma here to make it clear what it is.
You mentioned that Lord Chaitanya, he was the one who introduced Hare as part of your notice initiation. He's the one who gave it freely to people, so to speak. I'm just interested about the conception of the Maha-Mantra itself. Was that conceived by Lord Chaitanya, or did that exist prior to his appearance?
Well, the Maha-Mantra is there in scripture. So we have a quote from in the Kali Santana Upanishad. That mantra is given there. And there's a few Puranas also it's mentioned. So it's not that Lord Chaitanya made it up. However, name in general, when we call it Nama, it doesn't need any. It can just be Narayan, Vishnu, anybody. That's name. So you just call it the name of the Lord. That is very powerful. Like Ajamil just said Narayana, and called out his son meaning Narayana. So that's Nama also. But in our particular Kali Yuga, we have Lord Chaitanya, who's trying to get everybody to worship Radha and Krishna. So therefore it's Krishna's name and Radha's name. So he uses that Upanishadic mantra. which is also a name. And then he distributes that to everyone. But we see Lord Chaitanya and Caitanya Caritamrita say, Gopal, Govinda, Ram, Sri Madhusudan. He's just calling out the names of the Lord there. So he's not particular to any name, but all names he's chanting also.
I'm also interested in the particular arrangement of the Maha-Mantra. It seems to have a very particular structure about it, and the acharyas have commented on.
Well, there are different commentaries on that, rather esoteric. So Jiva Goswami's got one, Gopal Guru Goswami's got one, slightly different. It's all about please, engage me in your service, and then different expansions of that.
I heard that the Maha-Mantra originally was opposite Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama.
In the Upanishad, it's like that.
Upanishad, then Lord Chaitanya changed it into non-Vedic, I don't know.
That's was no real commentary any on that, but that's one reason perhaps, because if it's Upanishadic, it's Vedic. If it's Vedic, then it is limited in who can take it. Yeah? Now, only the upper caste can technically chant it. But when he reversed it, then it's just free for everybody. It doesn't make any difference ultimately. But that's the some story goes like that. So. Okay, Hare Krishna.